This group of kids saw something deadly. How to handle it is a question that you hope you never have to answer. It was the night of September 12th, 1952, when something appeared. They all just stayed staring at this massive fiery streak of light for a few seconds, and it didn't stop there. It actually kept going until they saw it crash land on a hillside just off into the distance of where it was headed. All of them were just wondering, what in the world? It wasn't a plane. It really did look too much like a comet to them, so they started running after it to see where it might have crashed. And along the route that they were running, Eugene grabbed his flashlight and his dog to help sniff out anything that could mean potential danger to them, and all of them as a group went out to that hillside to investigate what the boys had just witnessed. But along the way, Eugene's dog did end up sniffing something out, and it came off of its leash. It started running out ahead of them, barking uncontrollably. They couldn't catch up to it. Now, for a couple of minutes, they all just sort of stood there, waiting to see if the dog would go out there somewhere and signal them that it found something, but they never heard a sound. In fact, before any sound happened, the dog came running back faster than when it left, and this time it looked like it got scared by something. That's when the group started to feel a little weird, dizzy, nauseous, a little off balance. There was something radiating from that area, and when they got there, they were all shocked, scared. They didn't know what they were seeing, but what they did see was this giant crater, and inside the crater was that ball of fire that the boys had seen just a few minutes earlier that crash landed. And it wasn't just a ball of fire. It was like some sort of chemical spillage because there was this like steam coming off of the ball of fire. Like is this bright burning steam that was affecting all of them in that instant. And with it was this disgusting, foul stench of an odor that was so bad it made their eyes and nose burn. And that's when they saw it. Just off into the distance, hiding behind a tree near where the crater was, two little pair of lights, almost like seeing an animal's eyes in the dark. As Eugene saw those two little lights, he started staring at them and directioned his flashlight right where it was, and he thought they were all about to see a wild animal of some sort that was watching this whole thing happen. But instead, he ended up revealing something with his flashlight that was much, much worse. Instead, it was a figure. It had the build and shape of a grown man, except it was about 10 feet tall. It even had this large pointed head, almost like someone wearing a hoodie, and that's where they put two and two together. Those two pairs of lights that they saw behind the tree were its eyes, these large, glowing, sunken eyes within its skull. In that moment, they knew. Trying to investigate what they thought could have been a comet or a meteor that crash landed in their neighborhood was instead a nightmare that had become a reality right before them. The clothing it was wearing was sort of draping down from its shoulders down to the ground. It looked green and almost like it was just waving in the wind, but they didn't see any feet, and that's because it didn't have any feet. The thing was floating, levitating off of the ground as its clothes were flailing along in the wind. And after a few more minutes of this stare down between the group and the creature, Eugene thought it would be a good idea to flash his light at this thing once again to see if maybe it wasn't really an alien, maybe it was just some sort of mutated human that needed help. But the light didn't help anyone. In fact, it made the creature angry. It started hissing, making this screeching noise. Reports even say that it started shooting laser beams out of its eyes, almost like really overpowered laser pointers, like it was fighting against Eugene's flashlight. And then it started flying. This thing started flying right towards the group. It was ready to attack. They all saw it coming in quick right for them, so they all ran for their lives. But a couple of them, like Kathleen, ended up feeling this burning sensation on her back. It was an oily liquid that the alien creature being sprayed out of its mouth as a defense mechanism. Thankfully, they were all able to get away from the creature that night. They all ended up back home, but the next day, around the same time, 7 in the evening, Eugene found his dog in another room in his house, and the dog was just lying there dead, and it was lying all over its own vomit. When he went back to check in on Kathleen and the rest of the kids, he found them with the same sort of symptoms too. They all were vomiting all over the place as well, and they still had the dizziness, faint, weakness sort of symptoms that had been caused and triggered by the alien crash site that they'd seen the previous night. Eugene told Kathleen about his dog that had died from his own vomit, and Kathleen said, "Nope, that means we're next because we have the same symptoms." So she decided to call it in to the local sheriff's department. So Sheriff Carr and his deputy of the local department went out there to the crash site to check it out and investigate if they could find any evidence of this so-called being. And along with the sheriff and his deputy went a local journalist named Mr. Stewart. He actually owned a local newspaper called the Braxton Democrat, and he went along to try and see if he could gather any evidence with them, to see if he can note anything that might help make a story that would let the local people know about what had happened. And he did find something. It was, first of all, the oil that was sprayed on the family. That oil left a stench that they all were able to smell and see for their very own eyes on the ground. Along with that was a metal shard. The metal shard that was thought to have been attached to the spacecraft after it crash landed. But apart from that piece of metal from the spacecraft that they'd found that they thought might be a piece of it, the oil that was sprayed all over the ground, as far as the odor that it left, and maybe even the crater that they had seen with where the indentation was left out in that field of the crash site, nothing else was ever found about this occurrence.